is a decent chance that you've watched Gattaca, probably in high school biology class on a shitty projector. Directed by Niccol, it handles the themes of eugenics in relation to genetic engineering. Although disappointing as far as box office goes, Gattaca received generally positive reviews and became a classic further down the line. This is also the movie where Thurman and Hawke met and fell in love, so that's just a cherry on top. I myself watched this movie years ago when I attended university, and it has floated somewhere in my mind ever since. To be specific, I periodically thought about how this movie, for all its earnestness, has one flaw. It's a story of a genetically enhanced American dream. Before we start, remember that if you like my videos, like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. Also, you can listen to this on Spotify if you prefer. Check the link in the description. Gattaca presents a not-too-distant future where it's common to have children via in vitro fertilization, with parents choosing the embryo with the most desirable traits. Those conceived naturally are referred to as invalids, whereas those conceived via genetic engineering are considered valids. While discrimination of the former is technically forbidden, invalids face systemic discrimination and are usually relegated to manual labor. Our protagonist, Vincent Freeman, Ethan Hawke in this role, was conceived naturally and born with bad genetics, indicating that he might develop various health problems in the future. His parents used in vitro fertilization for their second child, Anton. As they were growing up, Vincent was always worse than Anton in essentially everything, until one day he saved Anton from drowning. Vincent dreams of space travel, but due to his genetic inferiority, that is barred from him. To combat this, he assumes the identity of Jerome Eugene Morrow, played by Jude, a former athlete now paralyzed due to a car accident. For this plan to work, he has to do more than just pretend to be Jerome. He must undergo various surgeries to physically resemble him, and continuously use his genetic material to even be able to get into the offices of the space company Gattaca, whose upcoming mission is to go to Saturn's moon Titan. When the Gattaca administrator is murdered, the police find Vincent's genetic material, thus finding out that there is an unregistered invalid somewhere there. As such, much of the film's plot consists of Vincent trying to evade capture and his scheme not getting uncovered. Meanwhile, he falls in love with Irene Cassini, played by Thurman, and learns that, although she is a valid, she has a heart condition that may end her dreams of space travel. It also turns out that Jerome jumped in front of the car himself when he got silver at the Olympics as opposed to gold. Vincent manages to evade the investigation. On the day of the launch of the space mission, Jerome tells Vincent that he stored enough DNA to continue to pose as him indefinitely. Before they fly, one of the doctors reveals that he knew all along that Vincent is lying about his status as a valid, but allows him to launch. As Vincent flies into space, Jerome commits suicide. The American dream conceives of the United States of America as the land of opportunity, that one place in the world where social mobility is possible for everyone regardless of the circumstances of their birth. Proved they work hard enough for it. These ideas came to fruition from the origins of the United States of America, conceived as the land where everything is possible. The phrase itself was coined by James Russell Adams. In his 1931 book, The Epic of America, he says, "Not a dream of motor cars and high wages merely, but a dream of a social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of which they are innately capable, and be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of their fortuitous circumstances of birth or position." However, Adams warned that a system that steadily increases the gulf between the ordinary man and the super-rich, that permits the resources of society to be gathered into personal fortunes, that afford their owners millions of income a year, with only the chance that here and there a few may be moved to confer some of their surplus upon the public in ways chosen wholly by themselves, is assuredly a wasteful and unjust system. It is perhaps as inimical as anything could be to the American dream. Either he was rather clairvoyant or his premise had been false all along. You decide, though I am inclined to believe the latter one. The foundation of America had inequality at its core, with the theft of indigenous land, slavery, and ever-present violence. Maybe this manifesto was an overcompensation of some sort. Not much has changed. In fact, Adams's warning rings even more true today, as upward social mobility is severely limited for working-class people, women, and people of color. Research from Miles Korak from the University of Ottawa shows that the American dream of social mobility is largely just that. A dream in the pejorative sense. An illusion. If why Americans have a harder time making it into the middle class is a bit of a mystery to economists, why Americans cling to the belief that it's still easy to do is even more baffling. It could be because during the late 1800s and early 1900s, the United States was a much more mobile country than Britain, said Jason Long, an economist at Wheaton College in Illinois. It's clear that Americans still believe that America has exceptional mobility, and that's not true, said Long. He called it vexing that lots of people could be systematically mistaken about verifiable, factual information. But no society has total mobility. Class is always going to be somewhat correlated to one's upbringing, Korak noted. So even in the actual lands of opportunity, the research pointed to Scandinavia as more mobile than the United States, for example. There is always the huge hurdle of your class. If you were born working class, chances are you will remain working class, and your children will be working class as well, and probably also your grandchildren. The sad reality of the myth of social mobility is overshadowed by the singular stories of success. We love to hear of Irene, who lived in a trailer but grew to be one of the most successful musical artists of all time. We are fascinated by Catherine the Great, born into a peasant family, who rose to marry Peter the Great and become the Empress Regnant of Russia. But these exceptional individuals achieved it all amongst the sea of mortals who were born into rags, lived in rags, and died in rags. Yet the American dream persists in the collective culture. Even game shows such as Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or reality TV like X Factor, America's Next Top Model, or American Idol present us with this dreamlike possibility. Work hard enough, and soon you will be the most successful singer or model in the world. Gattaca works on the exact same premise, except rather than upward social mobility in terms of wealth, Vincent's goal is to overcome his inferior status in an eugenical world. Faced with its inherent injustice, he conceives of a wild plan to get into Gattaca. To do this, he assumes the identity of Jerome, which entails undergoing multiple procedures, often very painful ones, such as lengthening operation to match his height. In order to pass genetic tests in Gattaca, every day he has to scrub his body from his own skin, use Jerome's fingertips to even enter the building, sprinkle Jerome's skin onto his computer keyboard at work to not raise suspicions. This plan shows that Vincent is a hard-working genius, and when he is given the opportunity, he quickly rises within the ranks. This is the modus operandi of the American dream. His hard work alone proves that he deserves this spot, and even if he is disadvantaged on the basis of his birth, his intelligence and work ethic make up for it. On the surface, that is an apt criticism of eugenics. Vincent has to jump over thousands of hurdles to be able to truly shine. But the issue here is that eugenics is presented as wrong, not because it's cruel and ridiculous to treat someone as lesser on behalf of something they have no control over. In Gattaca, eugenics is presented as wrong because it's an obstacle in social mobility. The system is wrong because it rewards genetics over hard work, not because discriminating against people on the basis of their genes is reprehensible. As Matt Goldberg of the Collider says, where Gattaca shows the constraints of American individualism in the late 90s ethos when it was produced by showing that the solution to Vincent's dilemma is simply to work harder. While in the 2010s and 2020s we're starting to address how systemic issues create individual barriers, in the 1990s we still swallowed the personal responsibility bromide unquestionably, and to be fair, we're still swallowing it a fair bit today. However, a movie where Vincent becomes an activist to protest systemic genetic discrimination doesn't make for the riveting individual stories we tend to expect from movies, since it's harder to capture the triumphs of groups and protests rather than the actions of the individual. In this way, Gattaca slightly and unintentionally reinforces the discrimination it seeks to combat. Vincent isn't attempting to bring down the system, and near the end of the film, he discovers that Jerome has left him enough blood and urine to last 2 lifetimes, indicating that when Vincent returns from his journey to space, he will continue to pass for Jerome until the end of his life. There's never any talk of ending the system, but rather that it's contingent on the individual to work within its confines and game it to the best of their personal willpower. Indeed, the story in which Vincent sees how rigged it all is and wages a guerrilla warfare against society would probably end up being moralistic and over the top in its message. But that doesn't change the fact that, as Goldberg points out, the lack of any address towards the systemic nature of the discrimination and the singular focus on this one individual being upstanding enough to cheat the system ends up subtly reinforcing what the movie is supposed to criticize. Vincent should be rewarded for his hard work and intellect, don't get me wrong, but in case he wasn't extremely intelligent and hardworking, he should be able to lead a dignified life regardless. Someone's intellect is not an indication of their worth. You don't have to be an excellent mathematician or an artist to deserve a decent life, nor do you have to possess pristine work ethic or the single-minded obsession of Vincent. And the invalids like Vincent should be granted opportunities irrespective of their physical health. And moreover, how many people as brilliant as Vincent, or even more brilliant than him, never made it into the elusive Gattaca because they lacked his resources, bravery, and most of all, sheer luck. If Vincent gets caught on a lie, his dream is shattered. That doesn't happen, but there could have been people 100 times smarter than Vincent and still get caught and expelled. Does it mean they were not worthy enough? The thesis of this movie should be, what Vincent has to go through to prove his intellect is ridiculous. The thesis of the movie is, Vincent deserves to be rewarded because he worked hard enough to fool the system, often by sheer luck that has nothing to do with his personal virtues. The thesis of the movie should be, the system is wrong because eugenics is wrong. The thesis of the movie is, the system is wrong because it prevents the Vincents of this world from achieving social mobility. Gattaca isn't interested in criticizing eugenics as a dehumanizing system that hurts a large chunk of the population, but rather as an obstacle for outstanding individuals who could otherwise achieve success and thrive. Vincent is considered worthy to succeed, therefore he does. He is the encapsulation of the capitalistic concept of social mobility. If he is disadvantaged by his weaker physique, he has to make up for it, work twice or thrice as hard as his peers, and eventually he will get there. It's a thing we often hear, right? If you work hard enough, you will eventually become a millionaire. Except, just like your chances to become a millionaire, Vincent's chances to succeed were very slim. A lot of it was just luck or coincidence. Just like in order to succeed in capitalism, you need something more than just hard work. And Vincent is granted his wish. He leaves the cruel world behind. But just how many other people like him remain on the ground and have to deal with that system either way? And once he returns from the space mission, he will have to continue to impersonate Jerome. Nothing changes. The dream is seemingly within your reach. But is it? Thanks for watching. Remember that if you like my videos, like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. And remember, Phoenix rises from the ashes, and ashes always are on top.